Yes, yes, yes. Greetings, family. It is so good to be live with you all today. And before I get started, we're doing something different today. This is the New Wave Pentecost series, exploring communal care with ASL, American Sign Language. And at this time, we have our awesome interpreter, Samantha, on screen with us, who will be interpreting for me apparently the entire time. Wow. I've had interpreters overseas in Germany and South Korea and in Finland, but have never had an interpreter on screen with me. So if everyone else on screen could just say hi and give everyone a wave. We are so happy that you're here. Those of you in the webinar, those of you out in the virtual world here with us, we thought it'd be awesome to just be on screen as we explore ASL. We even have our interpreter spotlight that just came up on Samantha. So we are figuring out how to expand our language, family, how to expand holistic communal care, how to expand our love for the world. And as I think about communal care, I think about breaking down the word to mean common unity, a common unity. Wow, wow, wow. And what happens when we come together, not just in the church, not just as organizations, not just as families, not just as individuals, but what happens when we come together under a common unity of spreading more love, more goodness, more peace, more justice in the world? And so that's why we are here today. At Pentecost, for those of you that don't know, Pentecost in the church is a time when the church was actually founded, when the church came together, when people of different languages and cultures and backgrounds and ethnicities could understand the spirit being spoken to them, could understand the words that were bringing them together, could understand what it meant to be united and not divided. And so that is why we are here today. Like I said, family, it's all about that holistic communal care. So, family, I wanted to share with you that I am a kidney transplant survivor. I'm a kidney transplant survivor. And as I went through that experience, I went through many challenges. I experienced many conditions. And one of those conditions actually was my hearing. And now, family, I am going the route to learn American Sign Language so that I can share it with my community, so that I can share it with those that I love, so that as I educate myself around this great, great language, my folks can come along with me on this journey as well, Across all age groups, as I did some studying, 600,000 people in the United States are deaf, and more than half are 65 years of age or older. And also, as I did some of my studying, I found out that 6 million people in America report having a lot of trouble hearing. And so it felt timely, family, that we expand our education, we expand our love, and we expand this care at this time, now more than ever. So as we get started, I wanted to invite my first guest, my dear brother Terrell. He is one of my co-creators in bringing this whole thing to life. And so I'm so grateful for him. Terrell actually might be on the screen. He might be on the screen with all of us. Yes. And Terrell, oh, we actually got a few Terrells popping up. Terrell, you look so good.
Listen, you're here, so I had to like try to bring it. Anytime Yanni Davis is in the room, then yeah, you gotta bring it. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And so, family, just to let you know what's going on here, we actually have Alex who will be interpreting for Terrell, and Samantha will continue to interpret for me as we continue to engage in this conversation, Yes, yes. And if anyone is live, drop in the chat where you're coming from, where you're tuning in from. Shout out your church, shout out your organization, shout out what you're doing in the world. We want to know, and we want to connect with you. Both my supernatural life with the new wave and new church ministry with the new church that we're rolling out this year. So, Terrell, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do in the world, in the church, with your life. Please tell the people about you.
Okay, so like I don't have a tattoo, but if I had a tattoo, I know exactly what I'd get. I'd get an ampersand because it's like I am all of it. That's I like to just be the and, like the comma, the comma, the comma, the semicolon, why be limited? Do it all. So I'm a father, I am a partner, I am a business person, I'm a minister, I'm a pastor. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm righteous, sometimes I'm ratchet. I just like to be human, you know what I mean? I am that unicorn. I serve the Christian Church Disciples of Christ as the minister of new church strategies, which means I lead our denomination in all of our new church efforts to just further make disciples.
Yeah.
So with that job, I get to meet and encourage the most amazing pioneers who God has given new visions to begin to explore and discern brand new collectives on earth. And oh my God, I could not be doing anything grander, in my opinion. It's amazing.
Yes, I love it so much. This is so wonderful, wonderful. And so I just wanted to ask you, why this work of expanding our care in the world? Like, why is it so important at this time, right? Even as we think about this past year that we've had, as we think about multiple pandemics, as we think about folks with disabilities and chronic conditions, folks needing our care in this season, what comes up for you as you think about this important conversation of increasing and expanding accessibility?
So when I started my last church, I like sought in scripture, Jesus, what did you come to earth for? Whatever you came to earth for, that's exactly what I want to start a church for. And when I went into it, I was taken to the scripture in John 10, where Jesus said, listen, I don't want you just to live, I want you to have abundant life. So for me, it's about this abundance of life and just being able to live that to the next level. And that happens through a few different ways. When the apostles started the first century church, there were four very clear things that they did. And funny enough, they fit within the acronym LIFE. Like for my mind, I have to put everything in an acronym or some mnemonic or something, or else
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't forget it. Yeah. So learn more about that when you tune into our issue on neurodiversity in July, and
Yeah.
some of the challenges I have even with neurological issues. But life, L, the first thing we always have to do is love. It always begins with love. Everything begins with love. Everything ends with love. For God so loved, we know the scripture. And so we just have to continue to do the love. My brother Alex, do that whole love thing again. Teach us that real quick. Yes, yes. Everything starts with love. So Elisa, yes. Okay, we're engaging everybody. So we want to
Yes, yes, everybody. Yeah, go
yes, yes,
give
yes,
some
yes.
love,
Teach us
love.
love, teach us love, teach us love. And this is also Wakanda forever, right? All right, so everything begins with love. Second thing, everything begins with introducing God. So no matter where you are, in the grocery store, on your job, in the unemployment line, whatever it takes, introduce God. Give an opportunity to like remind people of an amazing God that we serve and that we're in a relationship with. So introduce God and influence people. That's another thing the I stands for. Then the F is like fellowship. This whole year of isolation in many different ways, like, oh my God, I remember for almost a month, I went without human contact. And I went to take my car to a mechanic, and I just did a fist bump with him, and I'm like, oh my God, that was the first time I've had human contact in
Wow.
over 30 days. And I'm a hugger. I'm like super kind of like affectionate and things like that. So that was strange for me. But this year, there have been people. It reminds me empathetically that there are people in isolation in prisons. There are people who feel isolated because they can't hear the conversation that's happening in the room. There are
Yeah.
all sorts of different isolations, so
Yeah.
being able to empathize with the idea that fellowship means something different for all of us, and we need to be more inclusive in that. And so here we are with the E, which is equipping people to be able to do all of those different things, which as a pastor is what Ephesians says, I am functioned to do.
Yes. Wow. Wow. Everybody, can we just get a little more love? Can we show some love to
Yes,
Terrell? The way Terrell is trying to
back at
love
you.
the
He's
people
back
in
at
this
you.
new way, in this season. And so I kind of wanted to make it a little personal, since I know you, I know your story, I know your life a little bit. What would it mean to pass ASL down to your children, right? What
Mm.
would that mean to pass that legacy down to your children? Even as I think about the youth in the church, even as I think about families coming together in a deeper way, families that have folks that are deaf and hard of hearing, like what comes up when you think about passing American Sign Language down to your children?
Well, I want to say two things about that. First of all, tonight, when I tell my children, when I take my kids in bed and I tell them I love them, they're gonna get this.
Yes.
So every word I learn, I when they're departing away from me, going away to college, I can give them one of these. You know what I mean? Whatever ways it is, there are ways that, and like I didn't know exactly that was Alex, but something about Alex and the way he did it was like, oh, that must mean love. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I want to be able to demonstrate that love, and then maybe this will catch on. The second thing is, all day long, my 2-year-old daughter is TikTok dancing. That's all she does is sit up and do dances and dances and dances that she learns on TikTok. And to me, it's reminiscent of this. You know what I mean? They're learning the choreography, they're doing things,
Yes.
which says
Yes.
to me that this generation, maybe more than any other, is very primed to learn American Sign Language. That
I
they'll
love
be able to absorb it, and they're automatically in their minds learning choreography. So if we do our job as the leaders of the generation, or parents, or influencers in young people's communities, we have to learn it, and it's not going to take much for them. We just have to give that exposure, and they will be able to do it, because most times on social media, people are looking at that on silent or on mute or whatever. So being able to do things to integrate it in a way to where they can still feel the message and the communication beaming through, even when it's on mute, is really
you.
super important to me. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this, learning more languages that I can, more words I can pass down.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for being in conversation, for kicking this thing off, for letting the folks know why we are about this love
Yes.
work in the world, this love work, right? It's not hard, it's not burdensome. This is what we have been called to do in this season. So thank you for being united in this love work with me. And
My
so
pleasure.
last thing I gotta ask you, right? Last thing. I need you to give a charge to all of our pastors, all of our leaders, all of our community members, all of our family members, all of our friends that are signing off. I need you to encourage them in 15 seconds as to why they need to get with the new wave and the new church moving forward in 2021.
It's so simple. The Bible says, go and make disciples. Like, it's a commission. You got to do it. Get up, get out, and do and replicate God in the kingdom and on this earth. Do it.
Let's do it, y'all. Let's do it. Thank you so much, Terrell. Thank you for being here. And look, we look forward to the words that we're about to learn, some more community building we're about to engage in. And it looks like we got folks signing in from Tucson, Arizona. We got folks signing in from Evansville, Indianapolis. We got folks signing on from Virginia Beach, Atlanta, Georgia, Hillside International Truth Center. My love Maggie from Minnesota. Hard of Hearing, uses hearing aids. Children's minister at Church of All Nations, PC USA. So happy to be here, Maggie. I love you. We have someone joining from College Station, Texas. Love seeing so many people here joining from all over the U.S. Lansing, Missouri, Fort Worth, Galileo Church, and then someone just told me that they love me, that they love me, that they love me. So family, all right, let's just give each other a wave. Let's just give each other a wave, right? Isn't the wave powerful? Isn't the wave powerful? Look at everybody's beautiful face on the screen. This wave has been universal for me, family. As I went to India back in 2014, and I worked with 800 homeless boys at that time. The wave has been important to me as I was in South Korea as a peace ambassador through the church even, with my disciples family. The wave has been important to me as I was in Finland as a teaching artist at 14 years of age. When I didn't have anything more than my smile, I had my wave. And so we are here, family, at the New Wave Pentecost Series 2021. And I'm so glad to have all of you here. Keep dropping in the chat where you're from. I want folks to drop in the chat what communal care means to you. I want folks to drop in the chat why ASL is important at this time. I want you to give our interpreters some love. And everyone here on the screen, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here and engaging in this conversation. So at this time, I wanted to invite up my next guest, someone that I heard about on the interwebs, on the internet streets. I went and dropped in some Facebook groups that I needed some interpreters, some folks doing the work of sharing sign language with the world, someone dedicated to sharing the love of God. And this next woman came up. Oop, and really quickly, I see someone is giving thanks for Samantha. Thank you, Samantha, for doing such an amazing job today. All right, here we go. And my next guest up is Sharon, Miss Sharon Meek. Wow, Miss Sharon Meek. And I believe Alex will be coming back to interpret for Miss Meek. Hello, Miss Meek. Thank you so much for being here with me. I just want to give you a wave, let you know that I love you. I'm so grateful for you. So grateful for you. Yes. And so, Miss Meek, if you could just share a little bit about who you are, where you are, and briefly tell us about how you got into your work in the world. Uh-oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. I came into this deaf community actually by accident. I was an elementary PE teacher, and I was back in Atlanta looking for a teaching job, and the Atlanta Area School for the Deaf, a very new school at the time, that was back in the mid-70s, they needed a PE teacher. And I said to myself, how hard can this be? Obviously, I didn't know what I was getting into. I was in my early 20s and I thought I could do anything during that time. Anyway, I started at the Atlanta Area School for the Deaf and instantly was dropped into this world of deafness. And as part of that, I learned very quickly that it is an amazing world that entire group of people have. There were kids that we taught that were deaf from birth, or that had some sort of illness that they lost their hearing, very similar to you, Yanni, or medication or whatever. And it went all the way down the continuum to kids who were hard of hearing and could not function in a typical classroom. And so they came to the Atlanta Area School for the Deaf, and I began taking classes for sign language. And because you are enmeshed in it, because you're dropped into this and you had to sign every day, every minute, it comes on pretty fast.
Yes.
One of the things that I remember that was one of the funny things was when I was teaching PE, the kids, they would get antsy or whatever, or some kid would say something, and I'd turn to him and say, without signing, say, it's a good thing I don't know what you're talking about. Because very early on, but it was quick. Within a couple of months, I understood a lot, and it was one of the best teaching experiences that I had in my entire career. I stayed there several years before moving on into the whole arena of disabilities, and learned a whole lot, not just about deafness, but also about teaching and how these kids were going to be taught and stuff. So anyway, and it has served me well throughout my life, because it's amazing how many places you come in contact with deaf people. Many times, I would be in the line at the grocery store, and there would be a deaf person in front that was having difficulty explaining something to the clerk. Or you're in a restaurant and people are signing, and you see that they're having problems getting the waitress or the waiter to understand what they're talking about. Yes. And so you would instantly fall into this, let me interpret for you and stuff. Yes. So it was a great opportunity throughout my lifetime. Back in the late 20s, we moved up, early 20s, we moved up to the North Georgia mountains. And lo and behold, we arrived at a disciples church, the Cherry Log Christian Church. Yes. They had a deaf man that was at that church, had just arrived at that church. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, we then were called into service again. And even though we weren't certified interpreters, yes, we were what was available for the church at that time. So later I'll tell you a couple of stories about that experience.
Yes. Well, yeah, let's get into that right now. What was the highlight working with the gentleman that was at Cherry Log when you got there? What was the highlight of that experience? I know when we talked, we went on and on and on about all of the wonderful things, that were discovered as you were there. But tell me a highlight. Tell me one highlight you experienced working with
this man had gone to the deaf school in Cave Spring. It was a residential school. There were two types of deaf schools. There were the residential schools where kids stayed all the time, and there were day schools where they went home every night. He was in a residential school until he was a teenager. Mm-hmm. And while he was there, of course, they all had pastors and people that helped with the religious side of things. But he was taught that God was very mean, and that if you stepped out of line, God would not be good to you. And so he thought God was something to be feared instead of something than a God that loved you. And so it was interesting because we spent the next 2 years, every opportunity we had with him, to say, God loves you. God loves you. Yes. And we spent a lot of time saying to him, yes, God loves you.
Yes.
And what's interesting about that is that guy got cancer. But before he died, he understood that God was not this vindictive God that he had been taught, but rather he was a God that loved him and he was going to be with him when he passed away. Yes. And that was some exciting day.
Wow. Letting folks know that God loves them. Yes. Communicating with this dear language, this awesome language, letting folks know that they aren't alone, that we care about them, that we're here for them. Yeah. Totally sounds like communal care to me. Wow, Sharon. Thank you for your work.
Let me quickly say this too. Talking about our community.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time helping our congregation to know some words.
Yes.
And so when he was in the hospital, we taught all of our congregation to say, I love you.
Yes.
We took a picture of the entire congregation saying, I love you, and sent it to him so that he had the ability to know that these people understood and were sending him good thoughts.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. So based off of you saying that, Miss Sharon, everybody, I am going to put my screen on gallery view. I'm putting my screen on gallery view. Those of you that are at home, those of you that are in the webinar right now that can see all of us, everybody even on the screen, those of you that maybe have your phone readily available. I just want us to say, I love you. I love you. I love you. If everyone that's there, go ahead and capture this moment right here. I love you wherever you are. We've got all this love going out to the world, to everybody tuning in, my brother in Germany, my parents in New York, everybody in Arizona. I got a call from a deaf and blind woman on Monday who's in Louisiana, who's tuned in and is excited about this great work that we're doing. And so, Miss Sharon, my last question to you is, as you're talking to all the people of the world, everyone signed on to learn more about American Sign Language and about all that you do in the world, please give us a charge, give us a challenge, give us some things we need to do in this season to expand accessibility and communal care for our deaf and hard of hearing folks and our community members.
Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. Deafness is tough because of all the sensory disabilities that are out there. When you are deaf, you are isolated. It means that you cannot communicate. And so the best way to work with people who have hearing loss or hearing impairment or deaf is to make some effort to communicate, whether that's just pointing to things, whether that is gesturing. For example, if you want a drink, all you have to do is make the sign of a drink, like you're holding a glass and pouring it into your mouth. So lots of sign language is just simple gestures that most people could do if they just thought about it a minute. The other thing is to include them, to always include them.
Yes.
No matter whether or not you can communicate easily, if you're fearful, then it's never going to work. So you have to step forward and just say, yes, we're going to get to know you one way or the other, because deaf people want to be included. And so therefore we need to do our part to allow them to be included and to welcome them into the conversation.
Absolutely. I thank you so much for your wisdom, for your life, for your work in the world, and for being here with us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will keep in touch because my SupaNatural life and New Church Ministry, we've got some work to do. We've got some work to do. And so thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. I love you. I love you. I love you. Yes, yes, yes. Family, look, we've got some amazing heroes, heroines, beautiful people around the world and around this country doing the work of expanding communal care, holistic communal care, speaking to our bodies, speaking to our spirits, speaking to our minds, speaking to all that we are as people in the world. And so here we are today. I let my panelists know. I said, look, if I say something wrong, correct me. If I do something wrong, correct me. Let me know. I want to serve as an example that we don't have to operate in guilt and shame and be afraid. Okay, we don't have to be afraid in expanding our care for folks with disabilities. Okay, with folks with chronic differences, for folks that belong to our LGBTQ community, to folks that belong to communities that we don't know and don't understand. It is time for us to expand our language. It's time for us to expand our work. It's time for us to expand our dedication and our devotion to showing God's love in the world, to showing God's love in the world. So I'm grateful you all are here today, and we're doing just that, caring for each other in a communal way. You all are blowing up my chat. Let me just go to the chat really quickly. Folks are still dropping in where they're tuning in from. All right, all right. Here we go. Here we go, y'all. I'm going to the chat. Samantha, you are doing so great. I love seeing ASL again. That may be a little weird for you, Samantha, signing about yourself, but here we are. Someone said, as an MDiv student, we should be teaching at least basic sign language in our seminaries. I wonder what it would have looked like if I could have learned sign language in seminary. How many people could I have reached by now that I haven't? If that was an option. All right. I think of communal care as a garden. We have to tend to the soil as much as we tend to the plants. Even if we don't have deaf, hard of hearing folks in our congregations, though we may, even though we don't know it. By using ASL, we are tending to the soil, teaching folks that accessibility matters. That's why I'm excited to learn. Yes, we love that garden analogy. We use ASL with all three of our children. The amount we learned has been nothing but a blessing, that in a way that God has expanded us. So we have families out there using ASL. We have community members using ASL. We've got this next generation using ASL, communicating with their family and their friends. Also, I heard that they're graduating with some degrees that are pretty awesome and amazing to me. So at this time, I wanted to bring my new friends up, Alyssa and Ashley. Alyssa and Ashley, if we can bring them up on the screen with me. Yes, giving y'all a wave. Hi, Ashley. Hi, Alyssa. All right. And I believe Alex is still going to be interpreting for Ashley. All right. And Alyssa, are you going to be helping me as we engage in conversation?
Yep, I'll be.
Yep. Awesome. And Ashley is deaf. Thank you, Ashley, for being here with us. I heard so much about you. Could you tell me where you just graduated from and what your degree is in?
So Ashley and I both graduated from RIT. I graduated in American Sign Language, and Ashley can tell you what degree she just graduated with because it's a lot more impressive than me.
Yes.
So I just graduated the same. I graduated with a biomedical science degree. I recently just finished my bachelor's degree.
Wow, very cool. Very cool. Yes. All right, Alyssa, is this? Yes. Hello. Teach us some more.
Clapping.
Yes.
Round of applause in ASL.
Yes. Round of applause.
Thank you.
We've got the congratulations coming in for Ashley and Alyssa. Wow. So I want to know how you two met and became friends. What was the story there? Tell us about that, because y'all seem to be an example of communal care in the educational setting. So yeah, tell us a little more about that.
So it's funny story. I think Alyssa had been at RIT for about a year. And one of our friends had a celebration, and I went and I met her, and it was a new person, and she signed. So there were other STEP students around. So, she really wasn't an interpreter at that. So the rest is history. And we've been really good friends for about 3 years now.
Yes. Wow. And Alyssa, what made you get into learning sign? Like, how did this become, your heart work, your love work, and just a part of your experience as a person,
Well, ironically, it's the same as Sharon. I took a sign language class. My aunt was born disabled and she had a stroke around the time I was born about 25 years ago. And we just communicated with gestures. And I heard she was learning ASL at her work. So I thought I should learn some ASL. And I met some deaf people, and a couple other deaf people said, "You'd be a great interpreter." And I said, "What is an interpreter?" Long story short, I went to RIT and I met deaf people my age, which I had never met before. The first person I met who was deaf, I was 18 years old. So I was a little late to the game, but I just fell into it. And the deaf people said, "You're staying and you're with us." So they're just guiding my life right now. And I'm very, very lucky and fortunate to be where I am right now.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Ashley, so as you hear that you're actually guiding people's lives in this season, how does that feel, right? That you're like leading the way, and showing us how to like just do a thing in the world, like you as our teacher. How does that feel? Especially as you just graduated. How does that feel?
I personally don't see myself as a leader, but when we're talking about teamwork, I see that we're peers, but it's very important to be active listening and active watching, and they'll see it and be able to show their heart and learn all about it. Really, when I met with her, we learned all about our lives.
Wow. What was so I'm not sure. Yes, I'm sorry, the pandemic has my mind and the years all messed up, but at some point you all were together, like on campus.
Oh no,
No,
actually,
excuse me.
oh no, actually, we're great friends. We're great friends, but really, in everyday situations, there's only, I only sign with a few people, and sometimes some people speak for me so truly.
Oh, and I think Sam's just getting a little clarification from Ashley.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, we worked at a camp with other deaf students. Camp for Youth. It's called Explore Your Future, or EYF. So
Yeah.
they're for high school kids that are interested in going to RIT. Me and Alyssa, we worked as leaders for the students. Yes. Okay. And it was really good practice for ASL. A lot of ASL students, from oral to completely sign, and from hard of hearing to completely deaf. Some would SimCom or just speak, and there's a really large range. And it was a great experience to meet people of different signing backgrounds. Some were native, some were just learning or teaching themselves. So it was a really great experience.
Yeah. And to add to that, actually, Ashley and I, the first time I saw Ashley, she walked into a party and she started screaming. And I remember I was ready to go to bed. So I thought, "Oh, who is this girl with all this sound right now?" Because deaf spaces are very loud. You don't
Yeah.
realize that, but the music's bumping because deaf people love to feel that bass. So it's
Yeah.
you expect this big quiet space. Everyone's screaming. There's people wooing,
Yes.
doing things all over the place. But Ashley and I got really close at that summer camp. But yeah, it's definitely before COVID. Obviously, it's a little easier because you're in person. But we do trips back and forth to each other. We FaceTime when we can. We send Snapchats. But yeah, RIT Wesley, that's where we're from, Rochester.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So what has been a highlighted experience that you two have had together, right? So we talked about trips back and forth, we talked about going to the parties. Ashley, what has been maybe the most meaningful part of your friendship with Alyssa?
So honestly, there's a lot of great experiences, but for sure last year we worked for that month at EYF. It was really nice after that because me and Alyssa and the interpreter Sam, we went to a trip to the East Coast and we enjoyed ourselves on the beach and we had, good chats and we got to know each other. And it was a very relaxing, meaningful journey.
Wow, beautiful traveling together. And Alyssa, what's been the most communal part? The most compassionate part, the most healing part of being friends with Ashley?
I think, I mean, not just Ashley, but all the deaf people that I've encountered, they've allowed me to be in such intimate parts of their lives. A lot of spaces where just deaf people kind of just live their truth, and they've let me be in those spaces and they've shared their oppression, they've shared their experiences, and just getting that perspective. I mean, I will never truly understand what it's like to be deaf because I am not deaf myself, but just all the people I've been able to connect with in the last 6 years have just really changed my life for sure. Just people opening their hearts to me and just showing me their true raw experience. I mean, it's truly just a beautiful thing.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, you all, for being here with me today. My last question to you both. All right. If there were a few things that you would want the people of the world to implement and start doing as soon as this broadcast is over, Ashley, what would it be? And then Alyssa, what would it be?
Do you repeat the question again?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that I have it.
Yep. If there was one thing community members could go out and do after this broadcast to make the world a more accessible place, what would it be?
So there's a bunch of little things you could do.
Yes.
Be mindful. Think of the big picture when you go to the grocery store or when you're making a video on social media or in general. Think about who's around you and the environment and how can I include people. So, for social media, for example, how can I make it all visual, but not just for deaf people, maybe deafblind? How can they see your content? Or in the stores, if you make a video and it's in the store of an interview or laser tag or things like that in church, even sometimes you have a video, you could just include captions, something simple as that. Just being mindful is the first step in us.
Love it. Thank you. Be mindful. Be mindful. Awesome. And Alyssa, what are some things we can go out and do right away? Yeah, to make the world a better place.
I will definitely drop a couple apps that you can automatically close caption your videos. Ashley had shared that to me a couple months ago, and that has helped me a lot be more accessible. But I think also don't be afraid. Don't be self-conscious about, oh, I don't know how to communicate with this deaf person, because a lot of deaf people have the skills to communicate with you. So just be open and don't be worried about what you look like or how silly you may look, doing all the things, because ASL can definitely be uncomfortable if you're not used to it.
Yes.
I know I had to do a couple eyebrow push-ups when I first started because making faces was a little funky for me, but just be open, just fully open your heart and don't worry about what you look like, because honestly, just you even waving or saying hello or acknowledging a deaf person, making eye contact, just connecting is probably the biggest thing.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you so much, you all, for being here with us. I'm so grateful for your friendship. I'm so grateful for the example of care. And I'm so grateful for the ways you all are going to help me to expand accessibility, both in the church, in my community, and the world as I serve my dear, dear peace people. Thank you, y'all. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Alyssa. And congratulations, graduates. Woo, woo, woo. Round
Thank
of
you.
applause for them, y'all. Round of applause, round of applause. All right, family. So look, we're learning some new things today. We're learning love. We're learning I love you. We learned round of applause. All right, round of applause. Family, look, we learned that we've got to close caption the words that we're saying and we're speaking on our apps. They're making it super easy for us to make our words accessible and our language accessible. It's literally, you can turn on the option and always have those captions showing up when you go live, when you're posting videos, okay, family? Also, I just found out in Zoom, I was teaching my Peace Through Poetry workshop, and I found out, I had a deaf student sign on, and I found out that Zoom actually has closed captioning capabilities now. So from inside your Zoom rooms, you're literally able to click that CC, upgrade to the download for Zoom to make sure you're at the 5.1, 5.3, and you actually have options to close caption within your Zoom rooms. Okay, family. So we want to make these things happen. We want to do these things that aren't very hard. They are not hard. They literally take 5 seconds, 10 seconds to implement. And we're reaching thousands upon thousands in the world with God's love, with goodness, with joy, with community, with compassion, and with care, and with care, and with care. All right. So as we keep this thing moving, the chat is blowing up. I'm going to get to the chat right after this last interview, but everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. And I'm actually going to give some information. We have some information coming in around how to make our tech more accessible, and some things that we need to do to make the world more accessible coming in the chat. Y'all are blowing this chat up. I'm doing my best to read and see what we're saying here. Okay, but right after this, we're going to have some questions answered, if that's okay. All right. So at this moment, I want to introduce a dear mentor of mine, a dear teacher of mine, a dear friend of mine that I met maybe about 8 months ago. 8 months ago, one of my friends from Atlanta was like, my mother's about to teach ASL classes. Do you want to join? Do you want to sign up? And I just had to jump at the opportunity. And so at this time, my dear Dr. James, my teacher, my friend, is going to hop on, and we are going to have Miss Martha come at this time and serve as our interpreter for all that Dr. James is saying. And so Samantha, just thanking you again for being here, and for being my words today. I love words so much. And so Dr. James, hi, so good to see you. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Could you please just give the people a little bit about your background, how you got into this work? It's so much, but yes, please, who you are, how you got into the work, and how it looks now.
Okay. Let's see. I've always had issues with my ears since I was about 7 or 8 years old, but I never thought that I would actually lose my hearing. As I went through high school, I had ears, nose, and throat problems. So that continued. And my hearing started going in and out at that time.
Yeah.
So I guess when I was teaching in New York, I was getting ready to teach a fashion design course. And one of the teachers came to me and asked me if her deaf students could join the class. And I said, oh, I don't know any sign language. And I was thinking to myself, this would be a good opportunity for me because I was losing my hearing. So why not learn sign language? So when I went to learn sign language, I was in an immersion program. And the partner that I had, she and I would practice signing together, but we couldn't talk in the facility where we were learning sign. We couldn't talk at all. So after a few weeks, I think it was like 8 weeks and 8 weeks, so a total of 16 weeks, I'm thinking that we were able to then talk. The director said, okay, now you can talk to your person. So I went to speak to her and she said, you're hearing? I said, you're deaf. But we became best friends from there. And that was like 25 years ago. So she was the one that told me that I really needed to start teaching my children sign language because she saw it before I did. She said, you're losing your hearing. But I was in denial. And I don't know, I just thought it would never happen. So she started teaching my daughter. When I had my daughter, she was an infant before she could walk. She started teaching my daughter, and I would take her into the deaf community, and my daughter was just picking up the signs. And I never really thought about teaching her, but I feel so blessed that she, came up learning sign language because she had to interpret for me, because I did finally lose some of my hearing. But that wasn't the worst part for me. The worst part for me was when I have this issue called TMJ with the temporal mandibular joint, where the jaws and the ears, like I have inflammation in the ears. So on top of the hearing loss, I have more hearing loss when my ears start to swell up with inflammation. Then I lose the ability to speak mid-sentence. So again, I started learning sign language a long time ago, maybe about 30 years ago, but I didn't actually have to use it as a part of communication until I want to say maybe about 20 years ago. And I had to really rely on it because I lost the ability to speak for one entire year. And even now, Martha, I'm so happy to have her. She is an interpreter for me, and at the university that I teach for, I'm struggling now.
Yes, I understand. Yes. And I know there have been times where we've had to, kind of shut down our lesson for the day because I was going through something, or, you were dealing with something. And so we've always done the best that we could. And I think that's one thing that people need to understand about the community, about folks with disabilities. Sometimes things don't go as quickly, right? Sometimes things don't always go as planned, as it relates to some of the situations that we set up, or the plans maybe that we have. Could you talk a little bit around what it's been like serving as an educator in so many spaces, right? Could you just give us an example, not an example, but can you take us through your educational journey, right, of teaching folks in the community, teaching folks in Atlanta, teaching your family even? Can you take us a little deeper there? Because we've had to make some adjustments. We've had to operate in certain kind of ways throughout our lives. And so give us a little bit information about that, please.
Okay. I've been an educator for about 30 years. I started off as a fashion design instructor for the New York City public schools. Then I moved into becoming an administrator. And that's when I started to really have issues with speaking. So from that point, I was trying to figure out I needed to do something. I love teaching. At that point, I really didn't know that I was going to lose my hearing or have issues with my speech, but I felt it. I didn't know what this issue was. I was going to the doctor and they couldn't figure out what it was. Then when I moved to Atlanta, I started teaching ASL, and I just thought to myself, and I really believe it was God guiding me in my direction where I should be to teach ASL at the university. And when I started, we only had 5 students. So now we're across 2 campuses with more than 10 ASL teachers. But when I started teaching, some of my students that had Meniere's disease, they were noticing some of the issues that I had that was similar to theirs. And they told me that it was probably TMJ or Meniere's. And I was like, still in denial. No, no, I don't have a problem. No, it's just temporary. I didn't think it was going to be something that would last. So as the issue became worse for me, and I started really struggling, I knew that I had to find a way to use my ASL in my profession.
Yeah.
So that's when I made the commitment that I was going to just teach ASL. And so from that point on, I started teaching ASL, and it's just grown from there. It's been blossoming, and it's been
Yeah.
such a tremendous blessing because when I was teaching level 1 through 4, I was struggling. I started struggling to teach level 1 because I had to do some explaining. And because we have some older adults, when we go into like a full immersion, some of them begin to panic. The younger ones can accept it, but sometimes for the older people, it's a little bit, they have a little bit more anxiety. So I had to step back from teaching level 1 and 2 to move to level 3 and 4, where I don't have to speak as much. Even right now,
Yes. No.
my voice, everything is starting to lock up when I start to
Absolutely.
talk.
Absolutely. And
I
so
freak out.
I want to thank you so much, Dr. James, for being here with us. We just got to the place in our work where we were saying, you know, nonverbal in our sessions together. And so at this point, you were actually going to share an example of a song with us by Kool and the Gang. Yes. And so I was wondering, we could just make that shift right now. Thank you for all of the wisdom that you shared around your educational process, around your background, around all the wisdom that you've imparted into your students all around the world and your children all around the world. Just really quickly, I actually do know your daughter Akila from when I was in Atlanta all those years ago. Found that out this week. And so cool. We're just gonna make a quick shift and a pivot. Thank you again for your words. And so Kool and the Gang. Kool and the Gang had a song called Celebrate. Celebrate. And so at this time, I was wondering if you could show us the sign for Celebrate as we're all on the screen together. Family, we know this great song. We heard it throughout the ages. And so we're about to learn a little bit more sign here all together. So if everyone on the screen can get ready, everyone out there in the virtual world, everyone on the webinar, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yes.
Yes.
So
And
this is the sign for celebrate right here.
yes, celebrate.
It's up here.
Celebrate.
Celebrate. With these
Celebrate.
finger shapes right here, celebrate.
Beautiful, beautiful. And let me find, let me see, where's my doctor on the screen? I'm so sorry. Doctor?
Ma'am?
Yes. And could you take us through the rest of the chorus, the next few words?
Yes.
Please? Yes.
Celebrate.
Celebrate.
Good times.
Time.
Come on.
Come on.
But for the second one, we're going to do celebrate good signs.
Ooh.
Come on. So the
Good
first
time.
one is celebrate
Celebrate.
good times. Come on.
Come on.
Celebrate
Celebrate.
good signs.
Signs.
Come on.
Come on. Come on. Woo woo. Yes. Round of applause, family. Round of applause. It's so good, so good, so good to have you, my dear doctor. I'm going to be in touch with you around how we might make some opportunities available to folks in the future. And I'm so grateful for all that you have meant to my life. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. All right, everybody. It has been so good to be with you all today. I just need to go to the chat really quick. Y'all have been blowing this chat up the entire time with with questions, letting us know where you are, letting us know how we can make the world a more accessible place. So someone is saying here, family, someone is saying here, especially for video, we want to make sure that we have our closed captioning turned on. We want to make sure that the letters are big enough for people to read. Okay, that is important. We want to make sure that the letters are big enough for people to read. If Zoom cannot generate the captions, you can hire third parties or find a website to generate the captions onto Zoom. All right, we can find someone, a website, a third party to help generate the captions on the Zoom. Okay. We do have a question, and I'm wondering if we can have someone answer this. How can we become interpreters one day? I know that there are training programs, but what are some general requirements or rules of thumb? I feel like that's an important question. That feels important. Any of our panelists care to share? Yes, let's start with Ashley.
Alyssa?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's start with Ashley. Did you have some guidance on interpreters, how people might become interpreters? What's the best practice? Yes.
Yeah, so I personally am not sure if it's an associate's or a bachelor's, but RIT, that's where you become an interpreter. That's a bachelor's program. And they have some minimum requirements there. You go and get you can go and get nationally certified and become registered in the US. So, you know, they make sure you're really qualified and have the accessibility and teach you how to do in different situations. Melissa, is that right?
Yes, that's definitely right. A few more things before you even get into a technical program to learn ASL. Just get involved, meet some deaf people, just learn the language, see if it's for you before you want to make a career out of it, because you know, it's people's lives. It's not, oh, that looks beautiful, I want to learn sign. If you really truly want to support the community, just learn about some deaf history, meet some deaf friends and learn about their experiences and pick up the language that way and socialize, and then get into a program. They're actually, if you want to get certified, yes, you need a 4-year degree, but technically right now you don't really need a degree to interpret, which is also an issue because anyone can pick up their hands and be an interpreter. And the only person who truly suffers from that are the deaf people who get the person who's not fully qualified. So just know the spaces you're in, know what you're qualified for. But like I said, if you want to get into a great program, RIT is the way to go. But before that, just make some connections with deaf people. That's the best way to learn. It's just learning the language from the people who use it and just see where it takes you, because that's exactly what I did. And it's got me to where I'm at. So just trust the process and start small and go for the big stuff later on. But it's all about
Awesome. Thank you. And circling back to what I remember distinctly what Ashley said before, we want to be mindful. We want to be mindful, family. We don't just want to jump in and start doing things haphazardly. We definitely want to have care and mindfulness in mind as we do this work. And RIT is Rochester Institute of Technology. Rochester Institute of Technology, is that correct?
Yep, that's it.
Awesome. We have someone that works at the University of Arizona in the Disability and Psychoeducational Studies Department. They also have a 4-year bachelor's degree in ASL. Thank you. TCC in Tarrant County has an associate's degree program that does result in full certification. Awesome. Thank you so much. My SupaNatural Life, we're also going to go about making sure we have resources on our website. Next week, we're going to roll out some resources on our website. Okay. If we could bring everybody back on, I am so grateful for this time that we have had all together. It is all about the new wave, y'all. It is all about the new church. We are expanding accessibility and holistic care for our people in 2021. And I just want to, everybody, let's just give a wave really quick. Let's give a wave to the people. Let's wave at everybody. Let's just tell everybody, I love you. I love you. I love you. And as we sign off, family, I just want you to remember to be peace, know peace, and live peace. Be peace, know peace, and live peace. It is all about that communal care and spreading the love in this new season. And as we sign off, let's celebrate one last time, everybody. Let's celebrate good times. Come on. And lastly, y'all, let's celebrate good sign. Come on. Ooh, see, I'm getting messed up, y'all. I'm getting tripped up. Celebrate. Celebrate good sign. Come on. We're in this together, family. I love you so much. I thank God for you. And we're going to keep making the world a more accessible, loving, and healed place. We'll see you next time.